Part 4. When I finally exposed David's systematic credit theft with evidence from multiple victims, the company's response revealed just how deep the corruption went and forced me to make a difficult decision about my future. Armed with evidence from multiple current and former employees, I requested a meeting with the CEO to present a comprehensive case against David's credit-stealing behavior. I felt confident that when the full pattern was revealed, the company would have to take action. I prepared a detailed presentation showing David's history of taking credit for other people's work, including specific examples with supporting documentation. I had emails, project files, and testimony from 6 different employees who'd been affected by his behavior. The evidence was undeniable when presented together. David had been systematically claiming other people's technical solutions, strategic innovations, and project successes throughout his entire tenure as a manager. He'd built his career on stolen achievements. I also documented the retaliation pattern, showing how David consistently responded to complaints by questioning employees' attitudes and performance until they either stopped challenging him or left the company. 4 talented employees had quit specifically because of his behavior. When I met with the CEO, I presented the evidence professionally and objectively. I emphasized that this wasn't about personal conflicts or recognition disputes, it was about a manager who was stealing credit from his team members and driving away good employees. The CEO listened to my presentation and seemed genuinely surprised by some of the evidence. He said he'd been impressed by David's project management success and hadn't realized there were concerns about how credit was being distributed. But then the CEO said something that made my heart sink. He acknowledged that the evidence was concerning, but said that David had been delivering excellent results for the company, and that management disputes were often complex with multiple perspectives. The CEO suggested that perhaps the issue was more about communication and expectation setting than deliberate credit theft. He said that in collaborative environments, it can be difficult to determine who deserves credit for collective achievements. I tried to explain that the evidence showed a clear pattern of David claiming individual credit for work he hadn't done, not just getting recognition for team leadership. But the CEO seemed reluctant to accept that one of his successful managers was essentially a fraud. The meeting ended with the CEO promising to look into the situation, but his tone made it clear that he wasn't planning to take strong action against David. He seemed more concerned about protecting a manager who'd been delivering results than addressing his unethical behavior. 2 weeks later, I was called into a meeting with HR and told that there had been complaints about my attitude and performance. David had apparently been documenting issues with my work and had recommended that I be placed on a performance improvement plan. The HR representative said that while my technical skills were adequate, there were concerns about my ability to work collaboratively and support team goals. They said multiple managers had observed problems with my communication and professionalism. I realized that David had used his network of management allies to launch a coordinated attack on my reputation. Instead of investigating his credit theft, the company was punishing me for exposing it. The system was designed to protect managers, not employees. The performance improvement plan was clearly designed to force me to quit or provide grounds for termination. I was given unrealistic deadlines, excluded from team meetings, and assigned to work alone on projects that couldn't showcase my abilities. David started micromanaging every aspect of my work and documenting minor issues that he'd never cared about before. He was building a case that I was a problematic employee who couldn't meet basic performance standards. Other managers began treating me like a liability rather than a valuable team member. I was excluded from important meetings, passed over for interesting assignments, and generally made to feel unwelcome at a company I'd been successfully contributing to for 4 years. The message was clear: employees who challenged management faced systematic retaliation that would continue until they left voluntarily. The company would rather protect corrupt managers than address their unethical behavior. But the most infuriating part was watching David continue to get promoted and recognized for his supposed leadership excellence. He was featured in more industry publications, spoke at additional conferences, and was being considered for a director-level position. David had successfully turned his victims into the villains while positioning himself as a successful manager dealing with difficult employees. He'd perfected the art of stealing credit while making his victims look like the problem. After 3 months of systematic harassment and professional sabotage, I realized I had no choice but to leave the company. The environment had become toxic, and it was clear that David's allies in management would never hold him accountable. I started job searching and was fortunate to find a position at a competitor company that offered better pay and opportunities for advancement. During the interview process, I was careful to present my departure as a career growth decision, rather than mentioning the credit theft situation. On my last day, several coworkers privately told me they were sorry to see me go, and that they thought I'd been treated unfairly. But none of them were willing to speak up publicly about David's behavior because they'd seen what happened to employees who challenged him. 6 months after leaving, I learned that 2 more talented employees had quit specifically because of David's credit theft and retaliation. The pattern was continuing, and the company was losing good people to protect a corrupt manager. I also heard that David had been promoted to director and was now managing an even larger team. He was being rewarded for behavior that had driven away multiple talented employees and created a toxic work environment. Looking back, I realized that my mistake was believing that presenting evidence of unethical behavior would lead to appropriate consequences. I underestimated how much companies will protect managers who deliver results, regardless of how they achieve those results. The experience taught me that credit theft is often systemic rather than individual, and that speaking up about it can be career suicide if you don't have powerful allies. Companies talk about valuing integrity and fairness, but they often prioritize results over ethics. I'm now working at a company with better leadership and a culture that genuinely values individual contributions. I've learned to document my work more carefully, and to be strategic about how I seek recognition for my achievements. Most importantly, I've learned that some battles aren't worth fighting if the system is designed to protect the people you're fighting against. Sometimes the best response to a corrupt environment is to find a better one, rather than trying to fix unfixable problems. David is probably still out there stealing credit from his team members and building his career on other people's work. But at least I'm not one of his victims anymore, and I'm in a position where my contributions are recognized and valued appropriately.